It's that bounce right here. Time to move on. Time to be strong. Don't stop now, shake this stop now. That's what I need. Come on. That's what you made me believe again. If you happy, then be with him.
Oh, so I'm gonna preface this with forgive me, okay? Because I am absolutely cooked, chat. I am cooked. I am destroyed. I got nothing left. But you know what? I love my community. I love the people that support me, and I know you guys want to see a YouTube video. You guys want to hear me yap about bullshit. So that's what I'm gonna do. Even though I don't want to do it, sometimes in life you gotta do things that you don't want to do. All right? This was a fantastic session today. I'm absolutely cooked. Why am I cooked? Because I'm an idiot. All right? I'm an idiot. I take every single set to failure. Every single set. And I talk about how going to failure, the failure rep, is physiologically inferior. I talk about that, yet I still decide to do it. Now, there's going to be less of a detriment when you're training with lower rep ranges because there's going to be less damage regardless, but still, it makes even more of a case for not training to failure when you're using heavier loads, i.e. like 85% of your 1 rep max. So that 5 rep max or 4 to 6 rep max, because you're going to have near maximal recruitment in every single rep that you do. And the whole point of training intensity is to increase effort to the point that you're recruiting your highest threshold motor units, right? Again, I've talked about this plenty of times, but I'm going to try to simplify it. I can't really simplify it because my brain is cooked. So stay with me. All right. We go to the gym, we apply mechanical tension to our muscle fibers, right? But in order for that muscle fiber to experience that said mechanical tension, it first must be recruited. And we recruit muscle fibers, i.e. motor units, which is essentially a bundle of muscle fibers that are innervated by the same motor neuron, in what we call size order. This is based on Henneman's size principle. So as you start the set, say in a 10 rep max, it's not that hard. So that means that effort is not going to be maximal. Because effort is not maximal, that means that we are not going to need to recruit our highest threshold motor units, the ones that have the greatest potential to grow and the ones that are going to be able to produce the most force. So by training in a heavier rep range, i.e. the 4 to 6 rep range, something like that, you are recruiting all of those motor units, boom, from bang on, square one, rep one. Hopefully that makes sense. I've touched on it plenty of times. But I don't want to get too technical because, again, your boy's brain is absolutely fried. Great session. Listen, a lot of the question I get a lot is, how fast should I progress? If I don't add a rep every session, does that mean I'm a failure and I should quit the gym? No, you're perfectly fine. Guess what? I hit 140 pounds on the Poliquin pushdown for 3 sessions. I hit it for the first time, which was stupid. I took a big jump because I'm an ego lifter. I'm like all you guys. I'm human. That kind of reminded me of that one guy. You guys know the guy on social media that I'm talking about? He's like this, I don't know if he's Irish or something, but he like looks at the sky. He's like, I'm a human or something. I don't know. Maybe no one knows what I'm talking about. But anyway, I was doing like 135 pounds for 5 reps. I was like, you know what? I'm going to increase weight. Why? Because I'm an idiot and I'm an ego lifter. And we all want to chase that shiny object syndrome, right? The shiny object for us is that heavier weight because, you know, more weight, more muscle, even though that's not how it works necessarily, right? More weight does not inherently mean more mechanical tension. With that being said, I hit 135 for 5 pounds like 4 sessions ago. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna try 140. Let's see what 140 feels like. I put on 140, I smashed 4 reps, okay? I go at it again, 140 for 4 reps. I go at it again, 140 for 4 reps. You know, this is the part where people start to be like, oh, you know what? I've maintained my reps on this exercise for 3 sessions. Maybe I should swap it out. Maybe I need to do something. No, you don't need to do anything. You need to be patient because with proper programming, you are gifted progressions, okay? You're gifted progressions. The reason why you are able to add an additional rep and add additional weight is because of the adaptation. The adaptation that we're after is adding sarcomeres in parallel, radial growth, right? So because of that, once we add new muscle fibers, now our force production potential, our capacity to produce more force increases. And because it increases, we are then gifted that additional rep. It doesn't work the other way around. If you try to work it the other way around, what happens is you speed up the rep, you shorten the range of motion, you use momentum, etc. And that is not progressive overload. That is just changing the task. Now, I feel like I've touched on that a bajillion times, but I'm still going to have to do it because it's the number one thing that people get wrong. So sometimes you got to be patient. A lot of people are under the assumption that it takes 10 years to become an advanced trainee. I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. Obviously, the duration that you've been training is not completely arbitrary, but it's what you do in those years that count. In the sense of, if you've been training, i.e. twice a week, your muscle groups twice a week, you've been using relatively heavier loads, doesn't really matter, you've been training close to failure with stable exercises, and you've been doing that for 2 years, you are not a beginner. You are not an intermediate. You are early advanced, whatever you want to call it, which means that gains slow down significantly. You're not putting on 10 pounds of contractile tissue in a year. It's not happening. So why do you expect, a lot of people that I work with, a lot of people that I talk to, they've been training for 2-3 years. Why do you expect to be able to add 5 pounds every single time, especially if you train full body? Because if you're training full body, you're doing it 3 times a week, and you're repeating that same exercise session after session after session, you have 48 hours. You think that the amount of, remember, we build muscle at grams at a time. You guys hear that sound bite all the time. So if we're under the assumption, which that assumption is true, that we build muscle at grams at a time, then those muscle fibers, do you really expect them to lead you to be able to add 5 pounds or even 2.5 pounds or even sometimes a rep every session? No. So be patient. There is no arbitrary rate of progression that you should follow, and if you don't follow it, you're a failure. That is stupid, okay? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You progress when you progress, when you are gifted that progression. So that's number one. Yeah, everyone needs to stop being so neurotic. Neurotic is, am I going to get cooked here, Chad? Is that a call? Maybe you could join the video. I don't think so. I think we're good. But neurotic, in simple terms, is essentially just letting these tiny little details that don't truly matter at the end of the day take up space in your brain, because too many people fixate on the icing, fixate on the small little details, and they miss the entire package, which, again, I don't want to just bore you guys to death, is a lot simpler than people make it out to be. And I know this coming from me, Mr. 8,000 sets, super specific, whatever, but you're not me, right? I've been training for, I don't even know how long now. Like, I'm 28. My birthday's in May 14th, by the way, which is coming up. So mark your calendars type shit. You know what I mean? No, I'm just kidding. But I started training in weight training in high school, and I was a pussy. I was like 17 years old and barely bench a plate, barely deadlift a plate. Now we have 17-year-olds benching 10 plate. No, I'm just kidding. They're benching like 5 plates and they're deadlift. You know what I mean? In my city, I guess my kind of school, we didn't really have some crazy strength program, strength training program or whatever. I played rugby in high school, but I was a big soccer guy, right? And with soccer players, weight training is not the biggest, especially unless you're at like the top level. There's a reason to do specific training then, but I never really did too much strength training. So when I started out, I was incredibly weak. So I started when I was 17 and I'm 28 now, so 11 years, and I'm pushing on my 12th year. And that's why I always say, like, oh, my physique isn't all that, because I know it's not. It's like, let's be realistic. And to make this point is, during that 11, like, a lot of time when people say, oh, I've been training for 10 years, they're like, oh, you know, they touched weight 10 years ago and they had spent a period of time where they didn't train, and then they weren't consistent the whole time. No, I've been dedicated, consistent. You could ask my parents, you could ask my brother, you could ask my friends. I have always been into the gym for those 11 years. Now, sure, it's been on a scale, right? Some years were more locked in than others, in the sense, well, I can't really say that. I've always been locked in. There's no turning off. I'm always on, right? I'm always locked in. But there's levels to the whole, like, what was I doing, right? We've all had our powerlifting arcs, or our Mike Israetel arcs, or I had my Alpha Destiny arc, and then obviously I found JP, trained by JP, Jordan Peters, the GOAT, and he set me off on the right path. Get strong, ignore all the bullshit. With all this noise, because that's what it is. It's all this bullshit noise. Everyone's yapping about, oh, we got to do volume. You got to do more sets now. Everyone's talking about, oh, frequency is irrelevant. If volume is equated, at the end of the day, we're going in circles, right? That's the classic fitness industry. Stop with the ridiculous volumes. You're going to, listen, let me save you now. I will save you, okay? I will be your savior. Stop with the ridiculous volumes, okay? Just do full body every other day or 3 times a week. Do 1 set per muscle, per region that you'd like to grow. Simple. Repeat the same session every single time, and beat the logbook when you're able to beat the logbook. That's the key. That is the secret. If you want to do upper, lower, you want to do whatever, that is fine. Okay? If you're training a muscle every 48 hours, i.e. full body or full body every other day, max 3 sets per muscle, max. And that would be more so for beginner, earlier, intermediate trainees. And those beginner, earlier, intermediate trainees won't have a laundry list of exercises. That's not how I program. I would program a smaller amount of exercises, and we would do multi-sets. And then as you become more intermediate to advanced, I would take that smaller list of exercises, still could be 6 to 8, etc. Then we would break that up, and we would do single sets, and we would train more muscle regions. For example, instead of doing 2 sets of a preacher curl, I would do 1 set of a preacher curl and 1 set of a reverse curl, top half reverse curl, to target more of my brachioradialis. Everyone laughed at Yo and made Yo not like he's not a laughing stock. I agree with a lot of the things that he has to say, but everyone laughed at him when he's like, oh, the long run, oh, it's in the long run. It is the long run. You laugh, but it is the long run. What do you think? What do you think this is? You think you're going to be training for 3 years and then that's it? No, ideally, if you love this, you're going to be training for a decade, 2 decades. So it is the long run. So get used to it. Right? That's why I talk about delayed gratification all the time, because a lot of people want things yesterday. They have no sense of patience. Patience is a lost word in this era. Nobody understands what patience is. I think I'm gonna get cooked, Chad. This guy's going quick. Okay, you can go, buddy. But yeah. Learn to be patient. The people that are the most patient get rewarded. So, with that being said, we can kind of hop off that topic. Hopefully that makes sense. Stop with the ridiculous volume landmarks. It's stupid. In the next 6 months, what's going to happen is all these people that are, because they're all young, which, to be honest, I understand. I've been there. But we live in a day and age where education and knowledge is everywhere. Obviously, there's a downside to that because there's so many conflicting viewpoints from all these different talking heads. But what's going to happen is all these young guys that are pushing their volumes, they're sticking to the whole, like, you know, oh, volume, frequency doesn't matter if volume's equated, just do 1 million sets every other day or 2 times a week. You know what I mean? I guarantee you this is what's going to happen. They're going to realize that their strength progressions have slowed down considerably. The gains that they're seeing, because a lot of people will be like, oh, well, I've noticed such great progress from doing this. Did you really? Or is it just because it's a recency bias and you're potentially, you have some edema going on because you've been doing higher reps maybe, or more volume? Really the only indicator is going to be your logbook being your strength progression. So what's going to happen is 6 months is going to go by, and all these people doing 1 million sets because in the name of, you know, like the Pelin meta regression, you know, 52 sets of length and partials per week, they're gonna realize that their strength progression has slowed to a halt, and they're gonna come back, and it's fine. It's fine. There will be no "I told you so." It'll just be open arms, welcome back. So let me just explain that, and hopefully you guys understand. You can do what you like. This is my advice to you at the end of the day, right? Everyone can look at literature and have their own interpretation, and then it's up to you to decide whether or not you agree with that interpretation. Obviously, as a educator or social media guy that talks about science, you owe a due diligence to your to your community that you're honest and you're not just cherry picking data just to push your narrative about training, which a lot of people do, and everyone has preferences, and preferences matter, right? Enjoyment is important, because all these tiny little details at the end of the day don't really matter if you don't go to the gym, right? If you guys, one of the first books that I ever read, maybe it wasn't one of the first, but one of the first couple, so, you know, we read a lot of books, is The Muscle and Strength Pyramids from Eric Helms. And if I can recall, adherence and consistency is the base, because without adherence, without consistency, it doesn't matter. You could have the most optimal exercise or optimal session or optimal meal, but if you don't do it, it doesn't matter. It's essentially the theory crafting. If you guys are into games and stuff like that, theory crafting is like, there's another word for it, I don't know, but you're like cooking up the new meta, but you're not, you got to apply it, you got to actually see if it works, right? So you can think about theory all day, but if you don't actually take it and apply it to your training for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, we got to stop talking in weeks, we got to stop talking in months, we got to start talking in years. There's too many people that have no sense of patience, no sense of delayed gratification, and they want things so fast that they make these poor decisions. And you know what it has? It's spawned these kids. Now they're kids that are taking everything under the sun, and we're not going to name names, and I'm sure I'm going to get clipped. Maybe I shouldn't say this. Nah, fuck it. It's ridiculous, bro. It's ridiculous. And they're doing it for clout, because if it was truly to educate the masses, they wouldn't plaster the fact that they're like 15 years old, 14 years old. You know? Every single video, it's, oh, I'm 14 and I'm on this cycle. It's like, bro, one of my biggest pet peeves, not gonna lie. A lot of people think that I'm super anti-steroids, and I'm not. I coach a lot of people who are enhanced, and like I always mention, one of my biggest mentors is JP, and I mean, come on, you know what I mean? Look at the guy. But my pet peeve is the lack of patience, the lack of delayed gratification, the just jumping to roids because of what I believe to be insecurity. And a lot of people will say, oh, how do you know that? I mean, at the end of the day, it's just, you can have your assumption about people. I think I mentioned this in another video where it's like, you can judge a book by its, or you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but like if the cover is so loud and it like jumps in your face, you can kind of, you know, paint the picture. and you see what's going on, right? Everyone's trying to make it in this industry, and everyone's trying to be different, which I understand you have to, but you owe your audience due diligence in the sense of, especially if you're a younger creator, you're gonna have a younger audience. And because you have a younger audience, these younger people are impressionable. They're very impressionable. And if you sound like you know what you're talking about, chances are these people are gonna listen to you. And is that a bad thing? Well, it depends on the advice that you're giving. But if you're giving out cycles and you're telling people how to do things that are taboo, chances are these people aren't going to give the time of day to train for 5 years or 10 years. They're just going to hop on because they want to be stronger. They want to look better than their friends because it's written in this deep insecurity to be better. I don't know what it is, but that's enough of the rant there. I don't want to go too deeply there, but I understand that some people want to genuinely educate, because at the end of the day, if someone's going to do it, they're going to do it, right? So if you're going to do it, it's better to actually know what you're doing and understand how to actually implement some of these protocols and take some of these drugs. I'm just saying it from a perspective of looking out for the younger generation, and I don't want to say like, oh, look what you can achieve without being enhancements, because like I always say, my physique isn't something that like is impressive. But I mean, look at TNF, right? TNF looks insane, and he's been training for I don't know how long. He's like early 30s, and he looks incredible. So like that goes to show, with enough dedication, with enough consistency and effort, look what you're able to achieve. And it's just, in my opinion, it's more rewarding because you know that you've done it yourself. In the sense of there was no assistance, there was no I'm gonna get flack for that. I know I'm gonna get flack for that, but you know, this is my channel. Yeah, anyway, enough with that. I'm about to pull up. This was a decent video. I don't know, maybe you guys like it, maybe you guys don't. I don't know why it's really hard for me to cook these videos up. I'm an idiot. Why did I not park there? And it's hard for me to cook these videos up because my brain is absolutely gone post-gym, because I take everything to failure, because I'm a meathead at the end of the day. I'm a science-based ego lifter, okay? And I'll always be a science-based ego lifter, but, oh, I'm sorry, buddy. Let me go through. But we're doing good, man. We're doing good. I did want to talk about rep ranges and a bunch of other stuff, but you know what? I think I'll cover that in the next one. How's that sound? Anyway, today is Monday. I hope each and every one of you guys have a fantastic start to your week. Write down your goals. Write down what you want to achieve and break them down into tangible tasks that you can tick off every single day. Stop saying, I will. Stop saying, I'm going to. Actually do it, okay? Actually do it. Make today the day that you actually start, okay? If you say that you're going to hit X amount of steps, do the steps. If it's 15,000, break it down into manageable chunks. If you say you're going to learn about a subject, take that subject, break it down into tangible pieces that you could spend 30 minutes to an hour multiple times a day. All right, that's enough wisdom from me. Much love. Peace out.